One particular Saturday, I went out and I was going to go to a spot. It was a public spot, and I had this spot picked out that I wanted to hunt, and the wind was right and all this, and there was a truck sitting there. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can't go there. So I ended up going to a different spot that I hadn't been in, and it was a mile in. It was a long hike through this tall grass. I ended up setting up in this willow thicket. Had a great hunt. Had actually the deer come exactly where I thought they were going to come, and then they spotted me. And so they didn't come through, and I didn't get a deer. I'm walking out. My headlamp dies. These are the shenanigans that happen when you're hunting. Like, all your gear has to work. My headlamp dies, so now I'm like trying to get out. It's pitch black. I'm walking through this tall grass to get out over a mile. I'm like huffing and puffing and, carrying all my gear with me. And I get to my car, my van, and I'm looking at my stuff, stowing it away. And I look down and I count my arrows, and I think, oh no, I'm missing one of my arrows. And you think, well, what's the big deal? Well, here's the big deal. Arrow shaft, just the long part, is about $5 to $10. The broadhead with the sharp part on the end, that's about a $20 thing that I have on there. And then I have something really cool on the back. They're called Luminox. They're these knocks that when you shoot, it activates this LED light on the end so you can see them and recover them better. And those are about $10. So this is like a $35 to $40 thing that I have lost somewhere in this tall grass out, and I think I'm not going to go back in the dark. I don't have my headlamp. I can't go back in the dark. So I just think, it's going to be gone. So the next day was Sunday. I remember, and did church stuff, and then that afternoon I was like, well, maybe I'll try to go out. It's a long shot, needle in a haystack, arrow in a grassland kind of thing. But I'll go out, and maybe I can go to where I was and find my trail, and maybe I'll find this arrow. And I go out there, and sure enough, there's my arrow. This is the picture I took. Afterwards, I was like, honey, I found the arrow. And I sent this to her, and she's like, oh, great, good job. She's not nearly as excited about it as I was. But it was kind of this miraculous thing, but I lost it. I lost this arrow. I didn't know where it was. I didn't know if I could find it and reacquire it and get it back. I thought maybe I'm just going to have to write that one off. And I think there's something interesting there, because maybe we don't lose an arrow. Maybe you've lost other things. But in our spiritual lives, I've found that sometimes I get lost, like that arrow was, or I get off the path. So when I went back to find the arrow, I went to where I came out of the tree, and I think I was about here, and I was trying to look for landmarks and things so that I could go back to the path that I was supposed to be on, that I had been on, so that I could find that thing. And spiritually speaking, we kind of have this sense that, I have a relationship with God, I'm walking with God, I want Him to be part of my life, I want to follow Jesus. If you love Jesus, I want to follow Jesus. But sometimes I think we find ourselves and we're a bit lost, we're a bit off the path. Maybe it's been a long time and we haven't been doing our spiritual disciplines, or maybe our heart has grown hard, or our heart has grown cold towards the things of God. We show up to church and we do things that we know we're supposed to do, but maybe we're not feeling it, we're not sensing it, we're not feeling a connection with God. Maybe it is that we have things in our life, sin things, or addiction things, or thought patterns, or things that we're dealing with, and our focus has become so much on those, or we've allowed them to lead us astray, that we're off the path. We're a little bit lost. And how do we get back there? See, I was able to find that arrow miraculously by the grace of God. But how do we, as followers of Jesus, how do we get back onto the path, so to speak, of our relationship with God? If you have your Bibles, we're going to turn. The last 4 weeks we've been looking at the Bible itself, reading the Bible, memorizing the Bible, delighting in the Bible. We're going to head back to a sermon or a book that we studied last year, the book of Exodus. So if you have your Bibles, you want to turn there with me to Exodus. We're going to pick up where we left off, Exodus chapter 15, verse 22. This is on page about 55 in the Bibles that are underneath the chairs there. If you don't have one, we'd encourage you to grab that Bible if you can see one underneath the chair in front of you, and you could take it home as a gift from us here at the church. We would love it if you would take it home, open it up and read it. We have Bible reading plans we'd love to put you in contact with. But just as an introduction, if you haven't been with us, a few years ago, we started in the book of Genesis. The book of Genesis is the book of beginnings. It tells like the story of how the world came to be the way it is. It says that God created the heavens and the earth, Genesis chapter 1. And it says at the end of Genesis, that first story, the beginning of Genesis 2, that God looked at everything He'd made and it was very good. And everything in the world was good, was beautiful, was just the way that God had created it. But in Genesis chapter 3, humanity fell into sin. And that brought sin, that brought death, that brought disease, that brought all the problems that cause our hearts to groan in this world came as a result of sin. And so what God did at that point was really, really interesting, because if you or I had something that was gone terribly astray, terribly awry, we might be tempted to just wad it up, throw it away, and start anew. But what God did at that point was not that. He didn't even say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to send a perfect president or perfect king, leader who's going to be like the top political power in the land, and he's going to fix everything for you. That's not what He did. He chose a man who was 75 years old. He said, Abraham, I'm going to make you a promise. I'm going to begin a relationship with you, and through you is going to come the Savior. In you, all the nations of the earth are going to be blessed. And so the rest of the book of Genesis follows the family of Abraham. And it follows the family of Abraham to a country called Egypt. And in Egypt, the people go down there and they're saved because there's a famine, there's food in Egypt. And then the next book in the Bible is the book of Exodus. And that's where we started last fall, or last spring, winter-ish, I guess. And the first chunk of Exodus is the story of Abraham's family. They've been in Egypt for 400 years at that point. They have been enslaved. And they cry out to God, they groan to God, they say, their groanings come before the Lord, and He says, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna get my people out of slavery in Egypt. And so He sent Moses, He sent Aaron, He sent the 10 plagues. And so that's where we're gonna pick up the story. God has just delivered His people from Egypt, from Egyptian slavery, through miraculous means. And we're gonna pick that up in chapter 15, verse 22. And normally at this point in the sermon, I would read the whole text. We're going through the end of chapter 15, all of chapter 16, and chapter 17 this morning. So buckle up. So in the interest of time, I think I timed this out. I think we'll be okay. But in the interest of time, we're not going to read through it. We're just going to walk through it together this morning. So this is Exodus chapter 15, verse 22. And there's one big thing. I grouped this together for a reason. Is because as you read these stories, there's things that are very, very similar in them. It's like part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5 of this exact same story that we're seeing. And as we go through these, here's what I think we're going to see. That the human capacity, and I picked this word intentionally because it's in the text, the human capacity for grumbling seems to be unlimited. The human capacity for grumbling seems to be unlimited. Grumbling is one way we get off track in our relationship to God. But there's that contrast there. But that doesn't change. Our capacity for grumbling, for whining, for finding the negative, it doesn't change God's gracious and kind character. It doesn't change that. So if we look at our text, we look at verse 21. We're going to start in verse 22, but if we look at verse 21, what has just happened? This is important for us to realize and to hold on to and to understand. What has just happened in Exodus is God has just destroyed the Egyptian army in the Red Sea. The people were delivered out of slavery. Pharaoh said, oh no, what have I done? Sent his army. Said, we're going to go get our slaves back. They come to the Red Sea. The people are trapped against the Red Sea. God says to Moses, stretch out your rod. He stretches out his rod. The Red Sea opens. The people cross the Red Sea on dry land. The Egyptians are like, wow, what a trick. We can do that too. So they follow, and God sends the sea back and destroys the Egyptian army. And in verse 21, it's the Song of Miriam. It says, sing to the Lord, for He has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider He has thrown into the sea. So that is the last thing that happened. And I think that's important because as we start to read what we're going to read this morning, it's easy to forget that God has just delivered His people. He's just overcome the strongest superpower of His day. And now this is what we're dealing with. But it's important to understand that. Verse 22, then Moses So right after this, then Moses made Israel set out from the Red Sea, and they went into the wilderness of Shur. They went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. Okay, so this is kind of the area we're looking at in the world. There's Egypt there. There's what we would call the Sinai Peninsula. There's the two fingers of the Red Sea, goes into the bigger Red Sea. Up north a little bit is Canaan and the Jordan Rift Valley. The Dead Sea is there, the Jordan River, the Sea of Galilee. This is the area. Now, the Sinai Peninsula, probably where this stuff is happening. We don't know exactly. There weren't like landmarks and signs and things, so we don't know for sure like the geographical latitude and longitude of where these things took place. But this is the general area. So there's a lot of desert. So when it says they found no water, that's a big problem, right? That's a huge problem. You got lots and lots of people, and now they don't know water. What are we going to do? We're going to maybe perish in the desert. Verse 23 says, when they came to Marah means bitter, they could not drink the water of Marah because it was bitter. Therefore, it was named Marah. Marah means bitter. And when they say bitter, it's probably not just that it tasted bad. It's that it would have been unfit for human consumption. It would have been dangerous to drink. Okay, so this is like poisonous, bad water. They see the water, they're like, overjoyed because, hey, there's water. We need water, but now we can't drink the water. Verse 24. And the people, here's the first instance of this word grumbled. The people grumbled against Moses, saying, what shall we drink? And maybe that's a reasonable response, but you think, God did just bring you out of slavery in Egypt. He did just drown the entire Egyptian army. You think he did all that so that you could die without water in the wilderness? They grumble. The word grumble is going to come up several times here. It just describes exactly what we would think of as grumbling: hostile complaining, strong words of discontentment, angry rejection or verbal attacks of a dissatisfied people. I mean, we resonate with this, right? We know how to grumble. It's kind of a human trait that we get this. So the people are grumbling against Moses. What does Moses do? He turns around. It says he cried to the Lord. And then notice this. I mean, this series of events, I guess it's really kind of comical. I think I don't know. Why this? The Lord showed him a log. Why a log? Why not a rock? No idea. Why not a handful of sand? Could God have used a handful of sand? Yeah, sure. But he shows him a log. And he threw it into the water, and the water became sweet, or able to be drunk. So they needed water. This water couldn't be drunk, dangerous to them. God shows Moses a log. Moses throws the log into the water, and the water is healed. Okay. Then notice what happens. It says, there the Lord made for them a statute and a rule, and there he tested them, saying, if you will diligently listen to the voice of the Lord your God, and do that which is right in his eyes, and give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you that I put on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord your healer. I think that's fascinating because this is starting this kind of cycle relationship that we're going to see with God's people and with God. The people grumble, the people complain, the people whine, the people quarrel. God doesn't get fed up with them. He's kind and he's gracious. And in fact, he reveals himself, new things about him. I mean, this is a wonderful truth. I am the Lord, your healer. He's revealing something about himself to his people. Verse 27, then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the water, so they had plenty of water. So that's kind of the first little story, but as we're going along, there's going to be more of them. Verse 1 of chapter 16, they set out from Elim, and all the congregation of the people of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they had departed from the land of Egypt. And the whole congregation of the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. There's our word again. They grumbled. And the people of Israel said to them, I mean, look at how extreme they get here. Would that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt when we sat by the meat pots and ate bread to the full. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Like, that's a pretty dark way to look at it. Right? Like, I don't think that's accurate or the intent of Moses' heart or the Lord's heart. But here they are, once again grumbling. And you think about it, if you just line up the things, God just saved them out of Egypt. He brought them through the Red Sea, drowned the Egyptians. They needed water. He brought them to a place where they would get water. He healed the water. Next thing up is they don't have food. They don't think they're going to have enough food, so they're bemoaning their existence and complaining to Moses again. Verse 4, then the Lord said to Moses, I would be getting frustrated at this point if I was the Lord. Just saying. Behold, I'm about to bring rain from heaven for you, or to rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them whether they will walk in my law or not. So here's this interesting thing. God is going to do something for them, but he's going to do it in a way, and he's going to give them a rule or a way of doing it that they're supposed to follow. So there's a question there. Will they do it? What do you think the answer is going to be? On the sixth day, verse 5, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather daily. Verse 6, so Moses and Aaron said to all the people of Israel, at evening you shall know that it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And there's a question there. Why don't they know that already? And in the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your grumbling, and here's a note, against the Lord, for what are we that you grumble against us? And there's a little insight here. As far as the Lord is concerned, and what Moses is revealing to us is that when God's people were grumbling against Moses, they were not so much grumbling against Moses as against the Lord himself. Moses was his representative. And I think there's a lesson in there for us when we grumble about life or our state in life or our circumstances, which is very normal. As we see, it's a human response. At a foundational kind of layer, who are we grumbling against? We're grumbling against the God who has given us everything that we have. And he's brought us through life, through sets of circumstances, through difficulties, pains, trials, joys, and we have something in front of us, and we're just like these people, aren't we? I know I am. Oh, Lord, I know you provided for me in the past. I know you made a way before, but I don't know. This one in front of me, it might be too big for you. And we grumble. Verse 8. And Moses said, when the Lord gives you in the evening meat to eat, and in the morning bread to the full, because the Lord has heard your grumbling, that you grumble against him, what are we? Your grumbling is not us against us, but against the Lord. Then Moses said to Aaron, say to the whole congregation of the people of Israel, come near before the Lord, for he has heard your grumbling. And as soon as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the people of Israel, they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, look at this. The glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. Just pretty amazing. You got these people, and they've apparently forgotten all that God has done for them. They grumble, and they complain, and they bemoan themselves, and they throw up their hands and say, it'd been better if we died in Egypt. And what does God do? He says, I'm going to provide food for them out of heaven, and not only that, but I'm going to reveal myself, my glory to them in the cloud. Verse 11, and the Lord said to Moses, I've heard the grumbling of the people of Israel. Do you see that this word grumbling is popping up over and over again? Say to them, at twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread. Then you shall know that I am the Lord your God. See, the point of this wasn't ultimately to provide bread for the people, but it was so that the people would understand who God was in relation to them. In the evening, quail came up and covered the camp, and in the morning, dew lay around the camp. And when the dew had gone up, there was on the face of the wilderness a fine flake-like thing, fine as frost on the ground. And when the people of Israel saw it, they said to one another, "What is it?" Which is what the word manna means. What is it? For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, "It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded." Notice what he's about to say. He's giving them a command here. "Gather of it, each one of you, as much as he can eat. You shall each take an omer," that's a volume, like an amount, "according to the number of the persons that each of you has in his tent." And the people of Israel did so. They gathered, some more, some less. But when they measured it with an omer, whoever gathered much had nothing left over, and whoever gathered little had no lack. Each of them gathered as much as he could eat. So God's provided for their needs in a miraculous way, even though they grumble and complain against him. Verse 19, "And Moses said to them, 'Let no one leave any of it over till the morning.'" So here's a command. Verse 20, do you think they followed the command? Of course not. "But they did not listen to Moses. Some left part of it till the morning, and it bred worms and stank, and Moses was angry with them." So if we're keeping track, you got a grumbling, complaining, disobedient people. They don't listen. Moses was angry. Verse 21, "Morning by morning they gathered it, each as much as he could eat, but when the sun grew hot, it melted." So God is providing for them this amazing, amazing provision, even though they don't deserve it. Verse 22, on the sixth day, so he's building up to the Ten Commandments where he's going to tell them they're supposed to keep the Sabbath day. Hasn't given them that command yet, but they're building towards that. On the sixth day, they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers each. And when all the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses, he said to them, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Tomorrow is a day of solemn rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you will bake and boil what you will boil, and all that is left over lay aside to be kept till the morning." So they laid it aside till the morning, as Moses had commanded them. They listened. That's wonderful. Good job, guys. "And it did not stink, and there were no worms." So this is a miracle that what happened on the previous days, if they kept extra, wasn't happening that day. And Moses said, "Eat it today. For today is a Sabbath to the Lord. Today you will not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day there is a Sabbath, there will be none." Now this is hilarious. Verse 27. "On the 7th day, some of the people went out to gather, but they found none. And the Lord said to Moses, 'How long will you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws?'" Right? They disobey once again. "See, the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, on the 6th day, he gives you bread for 2 days. Remain each of you in his place. Let no one go out of his place on the 7th day." So the people rested on the 7th day. So the picture that is being painted of these people is they're like me. They are clueless. They let their circumstances dictate what they're going to do, how they feel. The human capacity for grumbling, quarreling, disobedience seems to be unlimited. We're going to skip ahead now in the story to verse 1 of chapter 17. And this should be familiar because we already had a water story at the end of chapter 15. Verse 1, "All the congregation of the people of Israel moved on from the wilderness of sin by stages, according to the commandment of the Lord, and camped at Rephidim. But there was no water for the people to drink. Therefore, the people quarreled with Moses." Remember, before they were grumbling? Now they're quarreling. The people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." And Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" So this is an intensification of the grumbling. This is beyond grumbling. This is quarreling, arguing, testing the Lord. Verse 3, "But the people thirsted there for water, and the people grumbled against Moses and said, 'Why did you bring us up out of Egypt? To kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst.'" So Moses cried to the Lord, "What shall I do with this people? They're almost ready to stone me." Verse 5, and the Lord said to Moses, pass on before the people, taking with you some of the elders of Israel. Take in your hand the staff with you struck the Nile, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock at Horeb. You shall strike the rock, and water shall come out of it, and the people will drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. So God once again provided water. He's provided water. This is the second time. He's provided food. We've seen the people, all they do is complain and grumble. Verse 7, in fact, he names this place. He called the place of the name Massa and Meribah. Massa means testing or quarreling, testing, and Meribah means quarreling because of the people. And there's a question. If you were God at this point, what would you want to do with these people? Would you be like, you know what? I want to do good to them. I want to bless them. I want to help them. I want to prosper them. I want to save them from their enemies. If it were me, that wouldn't be my heart. At this point in the story, I'd be like, these people need to learn a lesson. So the final story really is interesting. Verse 8, then Amalek came and fought with Israel at Rephidim. Think, all right, God is sending his judgment on his people through these folks called Amalek. They should have listened. His patience is now run out. So Moses said to Joshua, choose for us men and go out and fight with Amalek. So Joshua did as Moses told him and fought with Amalek, while Moses, Aaron, and Hur, these old guys, 80 years old and up, went up to the top of the hill. And notice this. Whenever Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed. Whenever he lowered his hand, Amalek prevailed. You hear this preached. I was thinking about this. You ever hear this story taught or preached? It's always, Moses was up there praying. Maybe he was praying. I don't know. It doesn't say he was praying. All it says is he lifted his hands. And notice this. That is not a good war strategy. If you go out to war and you say, hey guys, we got this battle, we got to win it. What do you think we should do to win it? Should we do a surprise attack them in the night, have overwhelming numbers, have better weapons in them? What should we do to win this battle? And the guy over in the corner, he's like, let's not do any of that. Here's what we should do. Let's send our old leader up to the top of the hill, and he's just going to raise his hands. And you're thinking, and? So people will look at him, and then we'll sneak up on him, surprise him, what? No, that's it. He's going to raise his hands. That's the plan. Moses is going to go up on the mountain, and he's going to raise his hands, and that's going to help us win. What's the point? Whether Moses was praying or not when he was up there, the point of this is a victory that God gave. This is a supernatural victory from God to his people who were so undeserving. Verse 12, Moses' hands grew weary. So they took a stone, put it under him. He sat on it, while Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on one side and the other on the other side. So his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. And Joshua overwhelmed Amalek and his people with the sword. It's an amazing a sequence of stories. If you go back, they come across the Red Sea, there's no water. They find water, it's bad. God provides. They say, God, we don't have any food. What happens? God provides miraculously. They disobey God, and he says, okay, that's okay. I'm going to reveal my glory to you. They don't have water again. They say, we don't have water. And you think, don't you remember? God just provided water for us. What are you so freaked out about? He just did it a second ago. God gives them a miracle, strikes the rock, here comes the water. And at the end, these people come and attack them. What does God do? He saves them in a way that only he could do. And when we get to the end of that, we think, man, these people are so much like me. Or maybe I'm so much like these people. I go astray all the time. I get off course. I get distracted. I fall into things. I get into thought patterns. I let my temper get the best of me. I am not who I ought to be, just like these folks. And yet, the character of God is the same. He's kind. He's gracious. He's long-suffering. He provides. He saves. The human capacity for grumbling seems to be unlimited. But that doesn't change God's character. Now here's the question. What do we do as people? If that's true about us, what do we do? How do we get back on track? That was the question that I asked. And there's two things that happen in this story that are very interesting. And they point to the same thing, that what we need to do is we need to remember what the Lord has done for us. You're off track. Maybe you're grumbling, quarreling with the Lord. Maybe you're rebelling, disobeying against Him. What do we need to do to get back on track? Remember what He's done. If we go back to verse 31 of chapter 16. It says, now the house of Israel called its name, this is the bread again, its name manna, which means what is it? It was like coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. Like we think of honey and we're like, honey, it's okay, but I'd rather have processed sugar, right? All the stuff we have. Honey was the best and the sweetest thing you could get, right? This is like delicious cookie. I mean, this is as good as it gets as far as taste goes. That's what God is providing His people. Moses said, this is what the Lord has commanded. Let an omer, a volume of it, a day's worth for a person, be kept throughout your generations, so that they may see the bread with which I fed you in the wilderness when I brought you up out of the land of Egypt. And Moses said to Aaron, take a jar, put an omer of manna in it, and place it before the Lord to be kept throughout your generations. As the Lord commanded Moses, so Aaron placed it in before the testimony to be kept. So after all this, what does God say? He says, take some, put it in a jar. Now, they didn't have like vacuum sealing or preservation like we have, right? Like jars that seal really nice. This is like some kind of earthen pot. How is this stuff going to be kept through generations? It's not because it's sterile and it will just last, like the stuff in like your grandma's pantry that's been there since like 1990, right, that was canned. I've seen some of that stuff. Right? That's not what is going on here. This is a miracle, that stuff is going to be preserved throughout generations. This is a miracle, but why is God doing this? He wants the people to remember that when they didn't have bread in the wilderness, what did He do? He provided bread in a miraculous way for them. We go to chapter 17, verse 14. It says, then the Lord said to Moses, after they defeated Amalek, then the Lord said to Moses, write this as a memorial, something to be remembered in a book, and recite it in the ears of Joshua. Pass it on to the next leader. We're going to write it down so everybody can remember that God saved Israel miraculously from the Amalekites because Moses held up his hands on a mountain. That I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Just keep the manna, write this down. Why? So that you will remember. And friends, I think for us as people, this is a lesson that we are prone to forget. And we are prone to go off course. And we are prone to get distracted, and we are prone to be grumbling against God, and we are prone to quarrel with God, and we are prone to disobey God. And what we need to do as followers of Jesus when we find ourselves off course is we need to remember. It's fascinating, because if you flip in your Bibles to the book of John chapter 6, Jesus says something amazing. John 6:48. He says, I am the bread of life. Your fathers ate the manna in the wilderness that we were just talking about, and they died. But this, and this is himself, this is the bread that comes down from heaven so that one may eat of it and not die. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever, and the bread that I give him for the life of the world is my flesh. See, what's fascinating is in the story in Exodus, it's all physical provision. God provides physical water. He provides physical food. He provides physical salvation. And they needed a physical, tangible way to remember. See, we don't relate to God in that exact same way. We relate to God through Christ. And Jesus said, in reference to the story that we've been looking at, he says, your fathers ate the manna in the wilderness and they died because it was just physical bread. But this is the bread that comes down from heaven so that one may eat of it and not die. And he says at the end, the bread that I give for the life of the world is my flesh. And at the end of the story, it says people deserted him because this was just too far. They said, well, we can't eat your flesh. What are you talking about? But as Christians, we know that the day before Jesus went to the cross, the evening before he went to the cross, he took bread. And it wasn't manna. It was unleavened bread to help them celebrate Passover. He says he took the bread and he broke it. And he said, this is my body, which is for you. And notice what he says. Do this in remembrance of me. And likewise, it says, the cup after they had eaten, he took that saying, this cup that is poured out for you is the new covenant in my blood. And there's many ways to remember what God has done for us in Christ. You can do it by reading the scriptures. You can do it by listening to a song. You can do it many ways. But the central, and I would argue maybe the most important way that we have to remember what God has done for us in Christ is by celebrating the Lord's Supper together.